Welcome to ParaTruth.
Welcome to ParaTruth Reborn. This is a pre-recorded show on 107.7 FM New Orleans and United Public Radio Network. My name is Justin.
And I'm Erik.
And tonight we've got an amazing story for you guys. We are bringing on Ashely Roland and Shannon Alexander to talk about the documentary It's Coming. Ashely, a wife and mother of 5, has been beset by supernatural entities since she was 11. After returning to her family's ancestral Brooklyn apartment, she begins to witness strange events in her home and learns that her children are now experiencing the same. As the paranormal encounters begin to escalate, Ashely attempts to rid her house and malevolent spirits along with specialists in the field. Ashely and Shannon, welcome to ParaTruth Reborn. How are you guys this evening?
Thank you so much.
We're good. Thank you for having us.
Right before Christmas, we're excited.
Yeah. So, Shannon, both of you can answer this question. What made you guys want to do this documentary?
I did not actually plan about doing anything in the paranormal realm whatsoever. I was just doing research about people with sleep issues with insomnia or sleep paralysis. I've struggled from sleep problems my whole life, and I was just curious about it. I didn't know if I wanted to do a film on it, if I was doing research or what the case may be. But it stemmed from there, and I met Ashely, who mentioned she had experienced sleep paralysis as a child, and it really grew from there when I spoke to Ashely and her kids, when I subsequently met her kids who were experiencing similar issues.
Yeah, I think the fact I couldn't sleep was due to, and still is due to this, the spirit realm. I can hear it, I can see it, so it affects my sleep. So that's basically how it got into that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. After opening myself up, they want to whisper in my ear all the time, and it's annoying. So
yeah.
I completely get it.
Well, now, Ashely, when you were 11, what really made you start communicating with the entity known as Max?
Okay, so it started before I was 11, but when I was 11, something different happened. I got touched. I had never gotten touched. I could always see them, but there was never a point where one was able to put their hands on me. And Max did that. So I think that threw me into, I had no choice, at that point, but to try to communicate and figure out what was exactly going on, because then it was something I couldn't ignore anymore. The house that it happened in, my mom was experiencing things herself. We had priests come, they tried to bless the house. And ultimately, we ended up moving from that location. So that location itself was very, very active.
Okay. Did you find that when you moved that the entity ended up following, or was that like a whole new thing that started up in the new place?
So it definitely followed me. And when I see these spirits, most of them I've never seen before. I call them like passers, people that have just died and are just wandering around. But there has been multiple ones that have followed me my entire life to the point where I'm just used to those. So honestly, I think it's more scary sometimes when one I've never seen before tries to communicate.
Right.
Yeah, that's a hard thing in and of itself. And then just watching the documentary, you guys were catching multiple ones coming in as you're filming. So have you always had that ability, I guess is the correct term to use, where you can see and hear them?
Yes, I've definitely had that ability. But as I got older, the communication, it seems like they wanted to communicate more. And I think some of them, I still get this to this day, where they're just as surprised I can see them, like it would be the other way around. And I think once they realize that, especially if it's one that's, just sleepless. I had this one say that she couldn't find her body, and she just, kept proceeding with that. So I call them like unsettled.
Mhm.
That happens a lot for a lot of them, I feel like are unsettled, to be honest.
Okay.
Right. Now, Shannon, for you, like, have you always been a believer in the paranormal, or was this something that kind of awoke you to the other
Definitely.
side?
I
And
didn't
yeah,
have a huge interest per se in it. I mean, I watched the same films and read the same books as everybody. I wasn't an avid paranormal follower or anything. I hadn't experienced anything myself up until I had met Ashely and her family, though.
okay.
And that happened pretty quick, and that really did open my eyes out to the next realm and change my philosophy on life and how I see things in general. Thanks to Ashely, it was quite life affirming in a way, knowing
Mhm.
that this isn't all there is, and I feel like I've seen so much proof, having documented Ashely and the family for 7, 8 months or however long it was. It was a long time, but then yeah, our subsequent relationship after that, I've known them for a few years now, and doing other screenings that we had, odd little things that happen, I've become well aware of where they're at with things, and so it was very eye opening. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, now, how did you handle that for yourself? Because I know, like, we've met a lot of people who've were kind of new to learning about the other side, and about spirits, and that it kind of hit them hard. And for some people, it was very jarring, and they didn't know what to think. So, how did that work for you? Was it just like, oh, well, hey, there's clearly something on the other side. I guess we'll believe it and keep going, or were you kind of like fighting with it a little bit from
I
like
mean, at the
previous things?
time, in the moment, you don't really think a lot about it. It's
Hmm.
definitely in hindsight you realize, wow, that was a lot of activity that we captured, that we saw. It was disturbing hearing the kids talk about their feelings and their fears. That was the most tough thing, I think, to
Hmm.
witness. Them thinking they're going to die and they're being scared of things and everything. At some points, that wasn't the whole case, though.
Yeah.
For me, I have not experienced anything. They don't want to have anything to do with me. These spirits, they have not been invaded in any which way. I don't experience anything outside of Ashely and the places that we've been to and documented. No.
Okay.
So you notice a lot on the documentary that Ashley's seeing a lot of things, experiencing a lot of things. Shannon, when you were filming, were you seeing a lot of this stuff happen, or was it just mostly Ashely reacting?
It was like 50-50, because sometimes I would have to review the footage to work out what was going on. I mean, there was an instance in the film early on where I saw something dash from one side of the viewfinder to the other while I was recording, and then I subsequently looked at the material and it was confirmed that there definitely was objects flying across the screen that we had captured, like in the hallway, in the family's hallway of the house. Obviously, I witnessed equipment being moved, almost attacking Ashely in a sense. We had the mic stand, which was right behind us in one of the interview scenes where Ashely was in front of me. You can't see, but we're in the living room. The windows behind us were shut. There's no breeze, nothing. I had it on a heavy duty light stand, the microphone, and it almost attacked her. We've got that on camera. The noises
Yeah, I
that we
remember
heard
that
at the
scene.
hotel, the gunshots. I heard all that. I did not see anything. I mean, I saw what I saw through like Chris the Demonologist's SLS camera, and what I would hear obviously as well through the spirit boxes. What's the other word for them? The EVPs.
Yeah.
Those devices. So I witnessed a lot, but I did not see anything with my naked eye or anything like this.
And
Okay.
everything that was captured like on the camera, it's always weird for me because I see these as people, full body apparitions.
Mhm.
So when I would point to things and then the camera would pick it up, it was kind of validating a little bit because for me it's always like, well, I can see them, but other people can't. They just see, things getting thrown, cabinets getting open, and every time I would proceed to talk about them, the activity would ramp up and make it take even longer for me to get out what I wanted to say.
Right.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like on the documentary. I could tell that you were
Stressed.
struggling really hard to get it all out because there would be more entities coming in as you're talking.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad I did get through it though, because it was almost like a war between me and them, because a lot of them didn't feel like I needed to be speaking to everyone like I was about it, but I just decided to do it anyway.
And in that moment when Christopher, the demonologist, spiritual demonologist, and his wife Harmony came through, with Ashely. Ashely had seen things in the corner of the house, in the living room, and Chris's SLR's camera was picking up on these same figures in the same corner, as did my camera, which recorded that odd ghostly shudder that went from left to right in the corner of the house.
That was a guy.
So that was like
That was a guy,
all these
yeah.
different interpretations of it.
Oh. Actually, I do want to jump back to Max for a moment here, because
Okay.
in the documentary, you do have a medium come in and say that they can see or feel Max, and they believe him to be a spirit guide. Is that still the case in your belief? And in what ways has Max proven or disproven his intentions toward you and your family?
I was never really with the complete idea of him being a spirit guide. She did come in, and I understand that she was trying to help. But I've always kind of been 50-50 with that. I've experienced a couple health issues, health scares in my life where, he did come right before that and say, I think you should get checked out, or I think, and it would actually be true.
Right.
So that would make you think, okay, well, maybe he is a spirit guide. But then other things would happen where I'd be thinking to myself, whereas he's a spirit guide, why doesn't he show up when all these bad ones are, surrounding me, and days where I stay up 48 hours with no sleep because they're just, walking in and out of wherever I'm at. And it doesn't matter if I'm here, wherever I go, it seems like they go.
Right.
And that's why we wanted to take the scenes outside of the house. While we went to the hotel, while we were shooting outside at times, to explain that it's not the house. It's actually...
Yeah.
Right. Well, and we've seen a couple of videos with the kids outside, or a couple of scenes, and we would see little things kind of fly by the viewfinder as well, which of course is very interesting, because most people do have their homes that are haunted. It's rarely the person themselves who happen to be haunted. So it's a rather unique situation. And in this documentary, it's something that isn't really touched on that often in the broad media of paranormal documentaries. A lot of these people are going in, they're looking at homes and the properties, and on occasion it's like, okay, well, the home and the property don't seem to be the issue, it's the person that is grounded in. It's kind of rare. So to see that here as well, I guess, Ashely, like, I guess at what point did you start to really notice spirits and realize they were spirits? And how has that door kind of just remained open for you? Because I know there was, during the documentary, you're saying you wanted the spirits gone, but then in following scenes, we would see you communicating with the spirits, which is kind of like a contradiction, So I was just curious to get your view on that and what you were fighting with there.
I think during the filming, I was getting a little upset with the spirits, because it seemed like I couldn't, every time I would say what I wanted to say, they would do something. And I've been asked this question, would I want the ability lost completely? And to be honest, I don't know who I'd be if I couldn't see them. I've been seeing them since 11, but I would say around 14, I kind of knew exactly what was going on. I knew that it wasn't just the house I was in, that it was me. And I had accepted that. And I feel like every one that I've come across has not been bad. My issue is my son, it seems like he can see them just as much as I can. He even comes to get me, and he'll tell me, like, there's someone standing in the living room. Could you describe him so I can see if it's the same person? And it is the same person. So we can see the same thing. Okay. He's so young. I don't think he would know how to navigate. He does, he doesn't know, like, can I trust this? Can I not trust this? And I think that's my problem. I'm an adult, so
right.
I can kind of get through it. But if I had to lose the ability to help him out, I would do that. But I know that that's not, I wish I could do that, but that's not how it works.
Right.
Obviously, there's nothing I can do about that. I can only try to encourage him to just try to ignore them as much as you can, like cancel them out, because the more you engage, the more right that gives them to keep coming further and further and doing more and more things.
Right.
And Ashely has 5 children, and it seems as though just one, Javier, has the most.
Yeah, he's like me.
Has a gift.
My youngest can see them, but it doesn't bother her.
Gift/curse, whatever it is, however you look at it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But also, like, right now, you're telling him, but you're kind of teaching him to ignore it so that, he's not so scared and he can just not worry so much about it.
Yeah.
there's a possibility, of course, that as he gets older, he may want to tap into his intuition and want to learn more about it. Like, how do you feel about that? Is that something you want to help ground him in, should that happen? Or are you trying to steer him away from that, considering all that you've been through?
I think I would try to help him navigate, because obviously, if this is not something that's going to wear off, which honestly I don't think it can wear off, I think I'm just waiting for him to get to that point where I know that that's what he's doing, so that I can help him out. Because I do admit that this can be dangerous. Spirits can touch you, which I've learned, and I think that would be my fear. So I would try to help him navigate through it, because I don't think it's something you can just blink and, because there's days when I don't want to see anything, but I still do. It's not
Right.
something I can
Right.
do anything about. This is one of those tricky situations where even if I wanted to not see them, I see them. And I think it's going to be the same way with him, unfortunately.
Okay.
Now, it is fascinating that Javier is the only one that can see spirits, because I don't know how it works, but it seems like most women are the ones that have the gift, where men have to kind of work at it more. Women are more of a natural medium. Now, was your mom a medium, or could she see these things as well?
Not a medium, but she has a lot of premonitions, and every time she does, they play out exactly how she said. Now, in the film, you'll see it was actually three of the kids. It was Javier, the youngest girl, and the oldest girl. So
Right.
when my daughter was experiencing the same type of things, when she's 16 now, but when she was Javier's age, she was going through it. And her personality is more like mine. She handled it very well, to the point now where even if she sees stuff and she tells me, it doesn't bother her. She'll just tell me just so I know, like, there was a lady in the living room last night, that type of thing. My youngest, I think she still gets scared when she sees something, but so out of the five kids, it's really three can see, two just,
Okay.
and that's actually good. Two just,
The three that are in
yeah.
the
Right.
yeah, I don't know if they're just ignoring it, but whatever they're doing, it's working, and I don't get any complaints. But the other three definitely see, just not as intense as Javier. Javier is
Okay.
seeing full body apparitions. He can give you descriptions just like I can. So I think my worry is really Javier.
Okay.
So now, Shannon, let's talk a little bit about the documentary in and of itself. I'm a filmmaker as well. I work in the film industry, so I do a lot of producing and editing. So when you came to the table to produce this, like, how did you go about weaving the story? Like either in production itself, or even through the edit?
It played out as it played out. It was a big time commitment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was about following where they just happened to be at that time. It was serendipitous. The kids had been witnessing a lot of these encounters. They had a lot to talk about at that time. Javier would come to me and mention, "Oh, this is what happened the other day." He didn't even need to be prompted to a lot of the times. He would come to us and say, "This is what I wanted to talk about." Ashely was obviously going through something. She was worried about the kids. So the timing just happened to be right at that time. And we jokingly said that we don't want a sequel because it was a difficult time back in 22. And things seem to be plateaued a little bit. Or, I mean, Ashly's still saying things. The kids are still saying things. And we don't want anything to go worse or any more difficult than it has been in the past.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fair.
Look, it was very unplanned. It was supposed to be fly on the wall style filmmaking.
Okay.
It is a documentary.
Right.
We imposed certain types of structure where Ashly would desire certain specialists, quote unquote, in the field to come and help out, other mediums, other people to help Ashly out. So that was planned. We did want we attempted the eradication of it. That didn't altogether work, it appears. But Ashly had a clear-cut goal in this, which was to prevent the kids from, what would you say? Just to
Prevent them from so much like engaging. I can't stop what they
Engaging
can
is
see,
true.
but like just the engaging part, because I felt like if they became like me and gave these things the conversation that I give them sometime that maybe I shouldn't, I didn't want the things like in the film where I got scratched. It was more like a scratch burn. Things like that happen to me sometimes.
Like objects flying against you and things.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of them dislike me and they do things like that, and I didn't want it to get physical at all.
Do you think they dislike the kids though? I mean, the whole kitty situation goes deep.
Dislike kids. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't think. No, because I can't. None of those things like scratches and all that happens to me. It doesn't happen to the kids. It hasn't
happened to them, has it?
No,
Not really.
But me, it's all the time.
Well, now you did go about trying to eradicate the house, and you had the medium use sage multiple times in Palo Santo, it looked like, and then you had a couple of people come in and tried to cast the spirits out, which seemingly didn't work. Did you see any sort of relief at all from those, or did you see a ramp up in activity? And how did your emotions even affect some of that stuff?
I think my emotions were all over the place based on how it was going at the time, because when the demonologist first left, it was quiet for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It was quiet for a while, and then little by little, it would start again. I think we go through that period where sometimes it's every day for 7 days, and then I might have 5 or 6 days where there's nothing.
Well, like when the medium came, then the fire brigade had to be called.
But the medium, when she came and did the sage, it definitely got worse. It got worse.
Yeah.
It got really bad until the demonologist came in. I even had a guest that came over and it threw something directly at her. I mean, there was no way you could think it was anything else. And she was like, I'm never coming back there again. So,
right.
Yeah. You seem like the weird person, sometime, but it's what I lived through.
I hear you there. I'm always seeing or hearing something, or I get premonitions too. And my wife will be like, "You're reading my mind." I'm like, I can't help it.
I know. Definitely.
Now, during the documentary, the demonologist gets a message saying, "Tell them about the last case." Did you ever find out what that was?
Later. So I wasn't aware. You had spoke to him first? Well,
it was definitely related to another case that had gone dormant for months, but they're intelligent beings, and then they left Chris. They basically, the person who was dealing with this other issue that had apparently had it cleared for the longest time, called Chris right after that was said, pretty much. Yeah. Within half an hour of you getting that message saying this is what happened, and something else sparked up at that house,
I tried to
other
ignore
person,
it.
They saw something crazy.
I tried to ignore it because that person was telling me to ask him that for like 5 minutes straight, and I was ignoring it.
And then they provoked the person that Chris had tried to help.
So the entity that was supposedly removed from that person's house was basically telling me he removed nobody. I'm still here. And then that happened after. I just wasn't aware that that person had called him right after I said that.
But I think you could tell Chris what was going on. That was ticking over in Chris's mind. He could definitely tell something was up.
He contacted me later, like a few months down the line. Also,
He looked a little jarred by that comment. I recall him turning to his wife and saying, "Don't just ignore them. And of course, Justin and I, we're in 2 different states, so we're watching the documentary at the same time. And I texted him immediately. It's like, "Oh, something's off there. Like something. There's something weird happening." But that happens more often, unfortunately, a lot more often than you would think, where demonologists or spiritists, mediums will go in, try to cast out a spirit and think they do, but the spirits are so smart that they just kind of lie dormant for a while and they disappear, leaving people vulnerable. Because, here's one thing, like, I'm a Christian, so, and I've cast out demons before for other people. And one of the craziest experiences I've ever had in such cases was a woman I was working with who lived like 5 hours from me. She called me to tell me about this demon in her upstairs room that would always look down the stairs at her son. Black figure, red eyes, gave me some very specific details that I didn't tell anybody at my church about. But one night I was at church, we were in a group, and I was telling them, can we pray for such and such about this entity in their house? And we started praying. And one of my buddies, who absolutely is scared to death of like spiritual warfare, comes up to me and says, "I just had a vivid image and he tells me exact details of what this spirit looked like that this woman told me was in her home. And I was like, it's just amazing, like how things like that happen, how, you know, it works through through this like spiritual atmosphere and tells people, you know, shows people things. But yeah, it's just crazy where some people, unfortunately, sorry, my cat is getting a little crazy over here. So there's this piece of scripture where it says, when you cast out a spirit, it'll sometimes roam the earth looking for a new place to stay, comes back to its original home and finds it cleaned up and brings with it 7 more spirits more powerful than itself. And the idea of that, of course, is whoever's home it left or person that it left, they didn't replace that energy with something positive and light, and stronger than the spirit. And so people, when the demon leaves, or whatever spirit leaves, and somebody doesn't replace that energy, it's just an empty vessel. And these spirits just lie dormant and are like, okay, cool. Now we're free to roam again and make things worse than they were before. And I see that a lot, actually, unfortunately. Just people get deceived in many ways.
Yeah.
Did that demon get exorcised eventually?
The one for the woman? Yeah. That so
great.
We had another session about a week later, and she ended up calling me. I think it was probably like around 6:00 at night one evening. He's like, I walked into my house today and everything felt relieved. Like there was no energy in the air. My son said he feels a lot better. And like, I haven't heard anything from her since, like, which is great. Like that's a good thing. You don't want to hear from people that you've worked with and saying, oh shoot, it's back. And the fact that she hasn't, at least I hope, you know, it didn't come back. But she hadn't reached out since then. She was happy. Everything seemed cleared, and she was good to go. And, you know,
so the spirit just left on its own accord, you say?
Not on its own accord.
You did something, right? So,
yeah.
So you're a demonologist in a sense.
In a sense, yeah. I mean, I feel like the word demonologist is a very broad term because you have demonologists who are very much rehearsed in the mythology and the theoretical process of demons. So there's a lot of names, for example, supposed names of demons that we can find in various books on demonology. Unfortunately, it's all theological, and therefore they're not proven. They're not proven theses. Like these are names that people come up with. How, where, we don't know. And honestly, it's rare that a demon would even give its name up.
Yes, very rare. So you just read some scriptures and you did.
Yeah, scripture. So a lot of mine is a lot of what I do is just through scripture and through faith. You have people who go in and try to cast out spirits on their own will. Like we command you in the name of Jesus, to leave. I don't do that. I just pray.
Well, you notice how Chris said when he said that during the documentary, everything got very quiet immediately after that, which is odd.
It did. Yeah.
Now he's not Vatican ordained. He's self-taught, but saying certain things like that was interesting. What was it?
Yeah. Well, I'm a Christian, so I've had to have them come to certain locations that I lived at, and I've seen how it works, and sometime it works and sometime it doesn't, unfortunately. You can just pray and hope for the best, but I have seen it work in certain places where that entity was not in that place anymore. So.
Right. Well, and unfortunately that's just how it is. Like we see that even in scripture too. Some of Jesus's disciples come to him one day and say, Lord, we tried to cast out a demon and it won't go. Can you help us? And he's like, you have little faith. You have to pray for these to leave and not just cast them out yourself, So there's various ways that you can cast out spirits. In the Christian practice, obviously the Vatican, they tend to think you have to be Roman Catholic and ordained in order to do this, which is just bogus. I'm non-denominational now. I would probably call my church more of a Baptist church. But I've seen so many variations of Christianity of people who walk in with faith and they're able to cast out these spirits, either just on their own accord or through prayer or whatever. And unfortunately, like I think so many people are like, we're going to go to Catholic Church. And the problem is you have to, Catholic Church has to do their own research. Process. They need to come in and interview you. They have to it's more trouble than it's worth. If you can find someone that you trust, who you believe can help you, then that's the much better process to go. Because the church, they're going to try to be like, okay, how do we just prove that this is a demonic entity or something evil before just coming in like, hey, let me help you out. and help try to cast this out.
True.
That's true.
Yeah, it was difficult to find them in the beginning, and I did speak to one Vatican ordained priest, Father Carcetti, I'm not sure, but they were too busy, and they had stopped doing this. But like you said, it's a lengthy process, and they were in another city, so we ended up finding Chris DeFlori, who did a good job, and has been inundated himself with many calls internationally with people dealing with similar issues, and there's not enough specialists to help all these people that claim that they have these afflictions.
That's unfortunate.
It's in a way I feel like it's almost a dying practice, especially when we move, like when you consider 2024,
with the increases on the demand is on the rise.
Yes, 100%. And one thing that we're noticing, especially with like the younger generations, they're into the new age stuff, so they're tapping into spiritual things for fun. It's like when I was growing up, I'm 38. So when I was growing up, you don't touch Ouija boards. You don't do this. You don't do that unless you know what you're doing, because you open a door that, I grew up in a house that was haunted. So I spent nearly 38 years with various entities. I went through 3 months of demonic oppression, which is what ultimately led me to my faith in Christ. But nowadays people do it for fun, and then they post it online. And people start watching them.
Yeah. They don't close the door either. And
they don't close the door either. And then you have these people watching online, and what's happening? They're opening the door spiritually just by watching it, because now they're starting to think, oh, wait, this could happen to me. Is there something out there?
It's really not a good idea. Even for the film, it wasn't a good idea. What it was they were doing so much. And the entities that were coming through, I knew they weren't good because they wouldn't say anything. They wouldn't. I think I was just so upset. And I said, well, maybe I'll get answers that we can capture this way.
Right.
But honestly, no, my family wanted to strangle me because they know that normally, I wouldn't do that, because for me, I can see and hear them clearly. I don't need that. But for other people to see, the spirits that are around me, that was the reason for that.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I personally, it's a strong temptation for myself as well. Like sometimes I want to go out there and capture, like we used to be paranormal investigators. We had a team. We haven't had it in years. And I've personally tried to stray away from it. But there's times where I'm just like, I feel engaged. Like I'm getting pulled into something. And I'm like, I have to like, there was a time in Savannah. I was living in Savannah, Georgia for a while. And there's this tree called the hangman's tree. And there's stories about some demonic entity that hovers around it, and people would touch it and things would happen. Everybody's like, okay, well, we're not touching that. And like, I get drawn to it. And what do? I put both my hands on this tree, and my sisters lose their minds. Like, what are you wrong with you? It's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's one of those things that some of us have. Like, you just
what happened when you touched it?
There's a lot of stuff in Savannah. I hear a lot of
So
stuff.
Nothing crazy happened for me. Like, I didn't feel like there's anything that happened. I fell into some depression for about 3 or 4 days after that. Just like in those cases, we call it more of a negative oppression. So it's like you feel the negativity of the energy surrounding you from the entity, and you just kind of float with it, and eventually it'll drift off. Hopefully, I try to do a lot of cleansings and try to meditate, sit in prayer a lot to try to really just brush off the negative energy. I do a lot of things, taking a shower is one.
I believe that works.
100%. There's like so many ways that you can wash negative energies or just cast out entities. And a lot of people think, oh, it has to be sage, or it has to be Palo Santo, or you got to use a cross or whatever. It's like, no, it's all about your mentality. It's your belief and your faith in what you're doing, the ritual, in order to cleanse it. I've got friends who are they practice Reiki, and they use charcoal soap every night to
whatever
wash.
Helps.
Yeah, and for them it works.
Because negativity feeds off negativity, right?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
And it can make you can inhabit their emotions, their sadness, their all of that, anxiety, depression. It definitely happens.
And
it's all tied in.
It's amazing how easily energy can affect us. Something we've talked about on the show many times is the idea of the psychic vampire. And this is basically people who exert a type of energy, which is often negative and can affect you. It drains you. Like, are you ever around certain individuals, or maybe in a public place, and you leave, they're just feeling exhausted and drained? You're like, why? It's because there's these quote unquote vampires, whether or not that's what they call themselves, but they're able to draw energy from you, and you kind of just become, I guess, weighed down. Your shoulders are weighed down. You just want to go home. You want to sleep. You want to do nothing. And that happens so often because energy is this thing that is constantly around us, and it fluctuates between good energy and negative energy. And we have to learn to find that balance,
Yeah, that's not easy to do sometimes. No. It's definitely not easy to do. But yeah, I get it.
Now, Ashely, has there been any practices that you've used that have like worked 100%?
100%? No. Being honest, I would say no. I don't think anything I've ever done worked 100%. I think I've gotten almost, this is going to sound weird, I've gotten better at ignoring what I see. Okay. If that makes any sense. Now there are times where no matter how much I want to ignore, I can't, depending on the situation, or did they throw something and almost hit me again? You know what I mean? So even if I'm trying to stick to the practice of ignoring, when those things happen, I don't ignore. And what normally happens is now we get into a big word battle and stuff is being thrown. So I'm trying to control that. I really am, but it's very hard. And I think it's a very thin line because it's almost like invading my privacy at times.
Right.
That's the way it feels. Like sometimes I just want to have a night where I'm watching a show instead of having someone walk clearly across the living room screen.
Right.
Plus the whole process is so draining.
It is. There's times where I've even been depressed after for some reason. Just everybody knows me that I'll spend 2 days sometimes just not talking to anyone, and it's because I'm so drained, and I know that that's not normal. So I'm working on it though.
Well, yeah, I feel that I'm the same way, especially if I feel something around, I'll feel drained afterward because I'm trying to tell it, I'm trying to go to sleep. Leave me alone. Yes. And I'll wake up drained because it's one of those things where it's not going to listen to you regardless of what you do. If it's something malevolent, anyways.
Especially at night when you're trying to sleep. Because for me, I can hear, they're not talking to me when I'm sleeping, but I can hear the conversations amongst themselves. So there's times where I'll know just from the voices, it's like 4 of them in the hallway talking about whatever they're talking about, and I can't tune it out. So what happens? I end up staying up, walking around the house, It can be crazy.
Yeah. Well, something that Erik and I were texting about while we're watching the documentary is at one point you're hearing some children voices and whatnot, and you're even seeing children, and something that both he and I both have kind of learned over the years, that if it's demonic or a malevolent entity in any way, they're going to use something innocent to try and get to you to communicate with you. So what have you done to, other than ignoring it, to try and get them away from your family specifically? I mean, you as well, but I know you want to protect your kids on top of it.
Well, I've learned, like, recently I would read different Bible verses, out loud. And that would seem to work, at least for the time being. But there are 2 children who have followed me, I want to say, for the past 4 years. So in my mind, that's very conflicting, because I'm like, well, if it's something demonic disguising itself as a child, why do it so long? So then the human part of me is saying, is that a child? Did something happen to this child where, I'm a mother. So that they play on that too.
Absolutely.
Because you start to feel bad, but definitely for the past 4 years, there's definitely 2 children, or children-like figures, I'll say, that have been around. But when I can get a bad feeling, I read some scriptures, and at least for that time being, they seem to dissipate forward.
Do you think the figure Javier was dealing with, Kitty, was a child?
No, I don't.
But it might have appeared as one.
It might have appered as one, but to me, when I looked at it, it's an adult.
He kept referring to it as a he, she, genderless being, but we didn't really get into how old or the age of the person.
Yeah, I don't believe that was a child.
Wait, no, he did say man, and it was a tall figure, so I guess not.
Yeah, definitely not a child.
He didn't present as a child either.
No. Yeah. It's amazing, like, how long an entity, especially a demonic entity, will allow itself to pretend to be a child for years if it has to, because they're so good at the long game. You know, those
Time means
spiritual
nothing
entities,
for them in that realm. There's no time. It doesn't
right? It doesn't
mean
exist.
anything.
And you know, to them, it's like, oh, we can play this game for the rest of your life, and the longer they do it, the more you start to second guess yourself, and that's the point. You know, they want you to give in and believe that there's something that they're not. In fact, that's what I see a lot in terms of the quote unquote enemy. It wants to deceive. I mean, they go around as angel portraying itself as an angel of light, and you know, with sorry, my cats are climbing my curtain right now, and I'm like trying to stop them.
We have a cat,
they're
so
okay.
you know.
They're
But
4
no, I
months
haven't seen
old, so
him.
they're still
Oh,
yeah.
that's new.
Um, but yeah, like even when it comes to scripture, like it helps for a little while. And sometimes it helps, you know, really well. But in this case, like these are still spirits that are originally from heaven. These are angelic beings. Like they're like, we know the scriptures. Like, cool, you read a couple of them. I know it inside and out. And yes, there's power in it because of he who inspired it, right? The Lord. But aside from that, you know, it might push them away a little bit, but it's not always enough to keep them at bay. So
I
yeah,
think it's an immediate. It's more of a like, you know, something that works immediately, but it doesn't last long. The words are so damaging to them that okay, we'll back up for now. Like that's the
yes,
way I feel like it kind of
that's fair. Yeah,
that it kind of goes with them.
for sure.
And I think because they know I can see them, I'm not just, you know, a regular person where they're haunting somebody's house and, you know, knocking things over. Like the look that some of them give when I look at them and they realize like she can really see us.
Right.
Those ones sometimes tend to stay around, and I don't know if it's curiosity because sometimes I get that feeling, but either way,
Yeah,
most of them I would rather not engage with.
for sure. You know, and one thing that's interesting about negative entities, especially, you tend to see much larger hauntings within a home around people. For some reason, there are more spirits gathered there when there's a negative haunting, almost as if it's imprisoning these spirits there, either to
I
use
said
up
that.
their energy or, you know, whatever purpose they have. We see that over and over again in many stories with people that we've talked to or that we just see on TV, honestly, like a lot of things like Ghost Adventures, for example. That's a big show that you tend to see that a lot in negative hauntings. They're talking to a lot of spirits and like, why are they here? It's like,
Yeah, why do you think they all rushed in that way?
I've seen that happen even in my own situations
okay.
where sometimes it seems like there's one head one controlling all the ones that are around at that time, and the looks of some of them even look afraid of that other entity.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that
I
makes
wish we
sense.
had it.
Like,
So when Chris was here and they all flooded in, what prompted that? Did you?
Well, for me, what I feel like prompted it
At
was
that time,
Chris reading scriptures, and they were a whole bunch of them coming in.
it was a lot.
And
You
I
said
think
30 or something.
I think that they were called by what we were doing. The cameras. Like, what are they doing? Is she really doing this and telling everyone? It was that type of thing. But I had never seen that many at one time. They were coming through my walls. One even walked clear through the front door. You know, the door was closed, but I mean, just you can just see them just coming in, and they're all looking at me like as if to tell me I should be quiet.
yeah.
So that's the only time I think I really got shooken up, because most of the time I'm so tough that
Oh, you look shook, all right.
they
That's when you were
really they don't really affect me. But
crying on the couch.
for some reason, when they were coming in, it was one of them. Her name was Caitlin. I could feel her sorrow, almost like she died from something very tragic. That tends to happen to me too.
And Madeline.
Madeline, James, there were a few of them. I actually remember names. That's how weird
Yeah.
things get for me sometimes. But when you see certain ones that you've seen before, I remember who they are.
Okay. Now, there was a moment, one of the scenes in which you're on a rooftop with the medium. I apologize, I forget the medium's name.
Solid.
What was it?
Solid.
Okay. So you and Solid are on the roof and she's doing a sage cleansing for you. There's thunder in the background. It's very, kind of creepy and eerie. And Shannon, like, she comes back and says, "Oh, I forgot to sage you." And she sages you.
Totally.
What was your feeling? Was that the first time you've been saged, or like
It actually was. That's a good point. Yes, because she hadn't done that in the past. No one had done that in the past, and then she realized, wow, this was getting a little bit out of it wasn't really out of control, but there was a lot of communication right at that time. And yes, there was thunder going on at the same time when you're talking about Lionel's grandfather, right? Who had passed and smelling the scent of smoke. He was lingering and things. Again, it was just a lot of oddness that had culminated at that point. But yes, then I got saged. I had not experienced anything myself though that night on that rooftop. The sage apparently caught a light when I wasn't there though. That was not captured on camera, which was a bit odd.
We took a break for a minute. He went to do something, and me and her were talking, and the whole sage stick just caught on fire. The entire thing, right,
like
on the
actually
table.
on fire. Like flames at all?
And then
That's crazy.
when it went off, you would never be able to tell that. You would expect it to be black, like the whole thing burnt.
Right.
It wasn't. It was just like nothing ever happened. And me and her, we actually got nervous for a second, like, okay, is this gonna spread because it's on top of like a wood table or whatever we use. So that was quite. I think the spirits knew that we were about to.
For sure, Shannon,
tell
as a filmmaker.
More of the story.
Yeah, as a filmmaker, how disappointed were you that you didn't get that shot?
Very. A lot of things that I missed out on, I'm telling you. As soon as I leave, it's like they're tricksters, they're playing on me. As soon as I came into Ashely's house, lights would start flicker on and off. And there was a lot that we did not capture. I'm just glad that we did, because it solidifies what Ashely had been talking about, the kid's testimony. It was all about backing everything up. And you don't really see a lot of documentaries like this where we capture things in the moment live. It's always reenactments,
right,
with actors and overblown scenes. There's none of that. We don't have any reenactments. It's very observational.
We had a lot of weird stuff during we did Q&As right before the film came out, and there were things happening live that the people could see. And then also we had people that would contact us the next day and say, I don't know what happened, but after that live, there's things happening in my house. Just weird things. There's a couple Q&As where I had called out random people that I knew something was going on with, and one lady started to break down and cry because she didn't know how would I know what was going on in her life.
You through a screen. They weren't even there. It's all electronically done, which was really eye-opening. This person wasn't even in front of you live. They were in some other part of the world through a screen. On a Zoom call.
It's again, it's just amazing at how the spiritual world can communicate even through technology the way that it does. This is something we've seen a couple of times, especially on like TV shows. You'll get like a warning before watching it, like about a doll, for example. Like, this doll is so dangerous that some people may not want to watch this video because there have been people who've claimed things have happened just by seeing the doll on TV, and it's crazy how that, how that works through technology. But also we see this expansion of paranormal belief and the supernatural and the things that are happening in this world because of technology. I mean, the internet is so widely used by so many people that
they could be shining a light on it. Totally.
I think it's
people
the
getting
energy.
more in touch of things, more open to things, the way children are as well.
I think it revolves around energy, to be honest, because most spirits need the surrounding energy, whether it's from a person, whether it's from electronics. And I think that since we're all using a lot of electronics now, like that's how we talk to each other a lot of the time, I think they're kind of stealing energy during the moment. And that's how things like that happen. That's what I believe. It doesn't have to be true, but that's, if you think about it, that's kind of what it sounds like.
That's a valid point for sure.
I mean, we had screenings here, and there were wires that were flicking up and down, and voices from outside. And we go in the hallway, and no one was there, and odd little technical things. There was and voices and things that other people
they were hearing the same voices I would hear.
Ours. That was not ours. I'm just thinking about it now, looking around. It's wild.
Wow.
That could have been a whole other documentary in itself. So I think we've captured enough.
Now, Ashely, you had mentioned. I'm sorry, Shannon. You had mentioned that the documentary kind of started out as trying to figure out like the sleep paralysis situation that you were having and finding
sleep issues. Just people with sleep issues in general.
Now, has that continued since you've done the documentary?
No, it's interesting. My interest has waned in that. I mean, I'm still interested. I've got books about it, like why we sleep and things like this. It's categorizing all kinds of things that I was curious about, like being a night owl or being a morning person. I've always been a night person, things like that have been confirmed. But no, I haven't really gone down that track of that initial impetus of making a documentary about sleep per se. No, it all developed into It's Coming, the documentary, and that's where the work resides, in It's Coming.
Okay.
Shannon, something that's kind of controversial for people when it comes to paranormal documentaries is the use of music and sound effects in the edit. I mean, I know that you're using that to set atmosphere. What is your view? Like, why did you choose to use the music when you did, as opposed to just letting things be quiet and kind of allowing the microphone to pick up anything that could be happening in the background?
I mean, I spent so long on the sound mix to not make the music overbearing. It was designed to be as absolutely subtle as possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even music, it's sound design. It's synths, it's things like that that needed some type of punctuation on the atmosphere. But there's actually no music in there at all. There's no composer. It's just a bunch of sound design elements that underscore what Ashely was going through. But the music had nothing to do with what was seen or what was actually recorded through EVP or anything like that. It was just supposed to be very subtle atmospheric choice.
Mm-hmm.
But I did not want that to be overblown and sensationalized.
For sure. I mean, I think you did an incredible
I'm glad
job.
I'm glad you heard it, because a lot of people don't even know it's there. You have to have a keen ear because it's so subtle, and even just getting the mix levels right. I was supposed to keep. We wanted to keep it very low.
Mm-hmm.
Now we are getting close to the end, but I wanted to ask you guys if you could have anybody take anything from this documentary, what would it be?
I've been asked that a lot, and I say the same thing. What I went through when I was younger, a lot of people have no one to talk to about it. You sound weird. People think you sound crazy. So I realized that after the film was out, a lot of people felt like they felt comfortable, even just writing me and telling me about it. So I just hope that it reaches people who are might be going through the exact same thing. There might be a mother or a father who has no problem ignoring them, but now they're messing with their children. Like, there's avenues to get help. Like, you don't have to feel like the weird person because you're actually seeing what you're seeing. So I just hope it would change some people's minds as far as getting it out there and telling their story. That's what I would like.
And we aren't alone entirely.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all negative as well. It's a lot of it's love and light still.
Yeah. I've got a lot of people that have wrote after they've seen it. It was like, I really like that. And they would proceed to tell me, little stories that have happened to them. And that's a good feeling because they felt comfortable doing it. And before watching it, they didn't.
A lot of people have experienced things.
Yeah.
But you've experienced a lot more, I think, what you've gone through. It's very interesting, I found. I hope people find it as interesting as I did. Like I said, I was not from the paranormal world. I was just amazed by what I had seen, what I had heard, and what during the course of those several months. It was wild for me.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that's contagious. They are a real family. It is a documentary. It's not a mockumentary. It's not written. They're not actors. Ashley is a real person. They're all real people. So we need to emphasize that this is entirely real. Mm-hmm. What we captured was what we captured in the moment, in camera.
Right.
For sure. So now that the documentary's out and you're doing publicity still here, obviously you're with us. But what's next for you guys? Like, is there a next?
Well, like we said, hopefully there isn't a sequel.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of people that have written, they want a book, just they're interested in more stories that have happened in my life from 11 leading up to 38 now.
Absolutely.
So, there's that. There's people that, have asked me to come on shows and talk about it. And I have no problem doing that, if people really want to know. So right now, I think we're just taking it step by step because I don't think when we did this, I expected it to, reach as many people as it did, but I'm glad it did.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. Well, we are getting close to the end, so I wanted to give you guys a chance to tell everybody where they can find the documentary, trying to get in contact with you if they want to talk about their own situations with you. The mic's all yours.
Right now, Amazon Prime, Apple TV,
Fandango at home,
YouTube, Google Play, DVD as well. It's actually on DVD, which is interesting, and cable.
Yeah, if you have smart TV, which everyone does now, you go on Roku, you'll see it. If you just type it in, you can see it. And my email, I have an email, rolandashley61@yahoo.com. If anybody has any questions or things like that.
Awesome.
And it's the hashtag is it's coming film on all the social media platforms. It's coming film.
Yep. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll make sure I link all of that in. I'm going to put you guys in limbo for a second while we finish out the show. So hold on tight, and we'll be right back with you. All right, folks. That was Ashely and Shannon from It's Coming. Definitely a very interesting documentary, and you don't get to see this very often, especially even in like the ghost hunting shows that Erik and I grew up watching. You don't see the life that people are having dealing with this stuff. It's just the ghost hunters go in there, do their thing, and leave.
Right. Well, you figure a lot of, the ghost hunting shows are strictly entertainment, and unfortunately there have been certain individuals such as Ghost Hunters, the original, who were thrown off air for faking evidence. So it is really nice to see It's Coming to be very open to the family orientation of the spiritual warfare, like what's really happening, to see how real people are dealing with the day-to-day life of being inflicted by entities like this. So it's definitely really, for me, it was a really interesting take, and it was a lot of fun. And I use the word fun loosely to watch, but it was really cool and it's interesting to see inside of Ashely's life, and everything that Shannon shot, all the interesting things that popped up in the viewfinders. I know you and I were jumping left and right, texting each other like, "Did you see that? Did you see this? Did you see that?" Which is really cool because these are things that are happening at the time in real time. So if nothing else, I think this is a documentary that can really make those who are maybe skeptics kind of start leaning towards the belief aspect of the supernatural.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we've got a lot of great stuff coming up for you. Like we mentioned last week, that we are trying to collect stories from, or I guess that was 2 weeks ago, collect stories about people having cryptid encounters and whatnot. I included the link in the show notes. I'll include it again here. If you have a story, we're trying to link it by state. So definitely get in there. Tell us your story. It's just, we want to get the information out there. If you don't want to be on air with us, we can just share your story online or on the show. And then if you don't want your names mentioned or anything like that, of course we can keep those out as well, but definitely check that out. Anything I'm forgetting before we go?
That's it.
All right, folks, again, this was a pre-recorded show on 107.7 FM and United Public Radio Network. Until next week, where you'll find us same time, same channel. My name is Justin,
and I'm Erik. Peace.